Welcome back, guys, to our another part of our introduction to HTML. So in this part, we'll be discussing on HTML class attributes and HTML ID attributes. So we are moving to part 9. So if you've not watched our previous videos on part 1 to 8, do well to watch them. So today we are going to understand everything you need to know about class attributes and ID attributes. So welcome to Tech in Tech. And if you're just joining us, do not forget to subscribe on our channel for more updates of our new videos, and as well like our videos and comment. We have the link to our Telegram group, you can as well join. We have a WhatsApp channel in the bio, you can there click on it and join the channel, so that when you have any questions to ask, you can do well to assist you one-on-one classes through the channel. But if you have questions during the course of the video, do not forget to comment, put them down in the comment section, which will be there to assist you to find answers to whatever problems or questions you have. So let's go along for today's class. Now, what do you understand by HTML class attributes? What does that mean? The HTML class attribute is used to specify a class for an HTML element. We use them to specify a class for an element in HTML. And multiple HTML elements can share the same class. Don't worry, after today, we are going to do each of them, everything we are going to discuss one after the other, do practical on them so you understand what we mean. Now, using the class attribute. The class attribute is often used to point to a class name in a style sheet. Take note of that. The class attribute is often used to point to a class name in a style sheet. It can also be used by JavaScript to access and manipulate elements with a specific class name. But today, we are only going to talk about how to use that in our HTML. Until we get to the JavaScript class in our video, and we'll discuss in full detail on how to use that. So in the following example, we have 3 div elements with a class attribute with the value of city. I'm going to show you an example after this. In that example, we have 3 div elements with a class attribute with the value of city, which all of the 3 div elements will be styled equally according to .city style definition in the head section. So when we have our class attributes and we style it, we use dots for our class. Now let's see the example. As you can see the code written down here, normal, we have our doc type HTML head style. So under our head, we have our style. Remember, we've talked about our style in our previous videos. Our style is used to, if you want to make your HTML to be beautiful, you style it. So these are the style that we have. Then after we close our style, we close the heading. Now the body is the content that we wrote our style on. So all this content are what we show in our browser, and this style will work for the content. Now we have div class city. Now under that div, where we have class of city, we have headings of London, then another paragraph that was written London is the capital of England. Now this div class city, we have another one of which is heading Paris, then paragraph of Paris. We close the div as well. We also have another class, that same class of city. Remember, each of these class are cities. London is a city, Paris is a city. Now another one, Tokyo city. So we're using class for these multiple elements. Now right paragraph, Tokyo is the capital of Japan. So let's see how this is going to look on our code and our browser. I have this first code already. So I'm going to copy it. As you can see, I want to copy. Remember, I've already copied that. Remember, all what I wrote here, this is my style, work for it. My background color will give me tomato, my text color is white, then the border 2px, it will be solid and black, margin of 20px, and as well padding of 20 pixel. So I'm going to my VS Code down here. I've already created a folder. I name it Classes ID. Then I right click it by opening it to my VS Code. So to start working on it, I'll click on my new file and type index.html and click enter. So I'm going to paste the code I've copied from my notepad, as you can see. So remember, always whenever we are discussing, I always encourage you to download from these extensions. You can see, you click it and download. I'll click it now. So you search for live server, as you can see. And so this is live server. So you download it or install it. After doing that, it will help you to show your code live. So I'm going to right click. Since I've already installed mine, I'll right click on my code and open with live server. If you've not installed it on extension, don't expect it to show automatically here. So if you install it, you're going to see it there. So I'm going to open with live server. So let's wait for it to load. As you can see here, down here, it's starting. So it's going to show on my default browser. My default browser is my Microsoft Edge. So I'm going to expand it now, as you can see. So this is what I asked it to do. So let me minimize it and compare it to what we are doing. So now my style here, my div class here, I've already told the code that okay, everyone that have a class city should work. As you can see, div class. So when you are working with class, you use dot city. So the elements class is equals to city. So it's trying to tell you here that okay, my div class for city is this, my div class for city is this, and the next one, let me scroll down so you can see, my div class for city is this. Now for my style, I'm not telling it in my style that dot city or anyone that have a city class should have a background color of tomato. The color should be white. It should have a border of 2px solid black. It should have a margin of 20 pixels and padding of 20 pixels. So it's now going to look at the content, my element, and since I've already given it a class, you can just form a name. Even though I create a name here to be, let's say, just a sample, country. My class is country. Then this one too, country. Give it any name. You can even give it your name. Just make sure there is a name there to be easier for you whenever you are going back to your code and you understand what you wrote down. So remember, I've changed it to my country city. So I'm going to change it to country, telling it that okay, all the class I've named should reflect with this style. So let's go back to our browser now. As you can see, it's still the same thing. So I name it class country. So when you're dealing with class, you use your dots. Take note of that. So the class will make your work easy. Instead of it now to start naming it one by one. Okay, H2, give me a background color of this. Then P, give me a background color of tomato. Then for Paris, give me background color. Remember that our heading here is London. It's different from the second heading here, which is Paris. So if you now want to start them one after the other, it will stress one. Then it's going to, for you to have the same, since you're having the same style for all the content that you have written down, and you don't want to start styling them one after the other. My H2 for this will be this. So it's better for you to class it. So when you class it and give it the same name, then you come up and use your dots of that same name you've used. So whatever you style here will reflect in every content you've written, as you can see here. So you can see that this part here for London, giving the same one for the part of Paris, the same one for the part of Tokyo, because I style it to be the same, and I use a class or country, and all the styles are the same. So let's continue. We are still going to understand better, but if you still need to get further clarity on that, you can as well pause the video at the time and listen again, or put that in the comment section. Let's see how we can assist for better explanation. Now, HTML class attributes. In the following example, we have two span elements with a class attribute with the value of note. But both span elements will be styled equally according to dot note. Remember, I told you when we're using class, we use dots before we write the name. So we style dot note style definition in the head section. As you can see here, under the style, we have dot note, telling that font size of dot note should be 120 pixels. The color should be red. Now, this H1, when I'm going to span it, I'm giving it a span class of notes, and that is why I'm using dot notes here. Assuming it's another name, whatever name that is here will be here as well. So let's see how it's going to be on our browser. So I'm going to go back to my notepad as well. I'll copy that. Then I'll go to my VS Code. Then I'll paste there. So let's go to our browser and see what it gives. So as you can see here, we have H1 heading my. Now this span class notes is trying to give it emphasis on these contents within it, important. So since I put it as a class, I'm going to use dot note, which means to set the color and the size to this. So since I'm using an element class note, so since I use a span class of notes, so I'm going to use dot note as well here. So now I'm trying to tell you that okay, only these important here should have this style, as you can see. And that is why if in a content you don't want all the content there to give a particular color or style, you want just a particular one sentence or a word like important to give you a style, you use your span class. So when I use my span class equals to, I'll give it a name, whatever name, you can even use your name and use tech in tech, whatever I like. But make sure that the name you use is what you use as your dot here. Then I wrote the word here, which is important, and close my span. Now, and I wrote heading, which like the normal contents. So this my and this heading is not affect this style here is not affecting them. So this span class here is only affecting this important, because you can see as I've closed this span after the important. So it's only affecting the content inside here, important, the word here, as you can see. But it's not affecting here because I did not put a span class inside it. Just like this, as you can see, this is some. Now I put a span class of notes inside this second content here, important, as you can see. Then text here, so it will not affect, this is some text, it will only affect this important because I put a span class of notes. And this note here, as you can see, dot note to show that okay, I want a style of what is inside the note to have a font size of 120% and a color of what? Of red. So, and that is the same thing you can see in the browser here. So this is another paragraph, as you can see here, and this H1 is heading. H1 is the largest heading, that is why it is big in this place. So let's continue as we go on to understand more better. So, but the important thing I would like you to take note is that the class attributes can be used on any HTML element, and that the class name is case sensitive. So you don't expect to use, let's say for instance, let's go back to our VS Code. Now the class attributes, you don't expect to use capital letter NOTE here and come here and use small letter NOTE. It won't give you the result you want. So it is case sensitive. So if you use small letter all through, make sure it is small letter all through you are using, as you can see. It is very, very case sensitive. So the next one we'll be moving to is the syntax for class. So to create a class, you need to write a period, which is like a dot character, followed by a class name. Then you define the CSS properties within curly braces. As you can see, the curly braces in our VS Code. Use curly braces. So you use a period or a dot, then you write whatever class name you want. After writing that, then put it in a curly braces, and make sure after writing whatever style you want, you close curly braces. So let's continue. We are going to see an example of what I just talked about. Okay, we've talked about this earlier, where the class attributes we use city, Paris, Tokyo. So just like what we said, we use class attributes here, H2 class city, and that is why we are using our dot city here. We do not use capital letter city here and come here and use small letter. So it is all small letter or true, small letter or true to make it work because it is case sensitive. And when you are using your periods and your class name or your dot and class name, make sure you start with an curly bracket. Put your style. After writing your style content, then you close it. We also have multiple classes. What does that mean? HTML elements can belong to more than one classes. To define multiple classes, what will you do? Separate the class names with a space. For instance, we have div class. Then we can say city name. Can see you separate the space. Then the elements will be started according to all the classes specified. So if you specify it with a name, separate the class name with a space, then it will give you it will specify it for you. So I'm going to do an example to understand what that means. So in for example, the first H2 element belongs to both the city class and also to the main class, and we'll get the CSS styles from both of the classes. So I'm going to my notepad now. I'll copy the code out. Then we're going to see what that means. So I'm going to copy this. Okay, sorry, not this. So I'll go to my VS Code now, then I'll paste it. Okay, so let's go to our browser and see. So let's explain them one after the other. So in this part now, we are talking about how to use multiple classes. Now this part I say here are the three H2 elements belongs to the city class. Now let's look at something. We have heading 2. We class the heading. The heading is London. That's the content we want it to display. Now we class this London to be a city main. Then Paris to ordinary city. Then Tokyo to ordinary city. Then we come to the style here. We style our city. That anywhere we see only city, okay, style them like Paris and Tokyo. Make them have a background color of tomato, their text color to be white, and the padding to be 10 px. Why the one for city main? Should only this here, since it has main in it, only this one that is London, the text there should be aligned center. Now let's look at it. As you can see, so because I put city main here, that is why it's telling me that okay, the one that is having main should be centered at the middle. To text align to be centered at the middle. Now imagine here I remove the main and I'll go back to my browser. Can you see? It follows everything that happens to Paris and Tokyo. It follows only this. It's not follow this because there's no main there. But now, if you want to have a multiple classes, like just a particular content, you don't want it to affect other content which you've already classed the same name. So you can give it a space name and give it another name. Let's say tech. And you make sure that you change your period or dot to tech as well. Now you see that it's going to affect this content here because I've already classed it with tech, and I say okay, the one that is having class of tech should have text align center. Now go to my browser, you can see it's already centered. So you can have a multiple class, like after classing all your elements and you want a particular content to have another style, so you differentiate by giving it a space and put whatever name you want for your class. Then you put a period under your style, you put a dot of the name that you've given it already, and style it to whatever you want it to be. So this is the example that we talk about. So now we'll be going to different elements. Different elements can share same class. Remember that element we talked about earlier are not different, or the only thing is they have different countries. Now how do we now work with different elements sharing the same class? Different elements can point to the same class name. So in the following example now, we're going to see both H2 and P. Remember that one have only just one heading, just one element, which is the H2. But in this case, we're going to work with our H2 element and our P element. So here, both H2 and P, point to the city class and we share the same style. So how can they share the same style? Now look at this code here. Let's first look at the body content. We have our H2 here, this is the content, and we have our paragraph here, this is the content. Now here I said my H2 class, I want to class this Paris. I want it to have a style of this, that okay, I've classed it and give it in the name city. Now it should have a background color of tomato, this Paris, and also the same another paragraph of this content class. Now these two here will not have any effects because I did not class them, but this we have the effects because I'm classing them and I'm giving them the class content style. So as you can see here, my P class city, Paris is the capital of France, so I'm classing it to be city and I'm giving it a style of that city to have a background color of tomato. Now let's see how it works. I'm going to my notepad now, copy that same code. Ctrl C. Then I'll go to my VS Code and paste it. So let's see what we mean by different elements. Ctrl paste. So I'll go to my browser. Before going, let me show up. Then go to my browser and see what changes. Now let's look at this one after the other. We have our H2 class. Remember these two I told you earlier, they won't have any effect because I did not class it. Assuming there is no class at all here, I just add my body, my background color, so it will affect everything inside this content. But I'm classing it dot city. What I classed, I gave it a dot. Then I told that okay, all the ones that have city class should have this style. So my Paris and my Paris is capital of France are having this style. Now because as you can see, the text color is white, the padding is what, 10px. So these are two different elements. Headings and paragraph are two different elements, but they're having the same class and they work for the same class. As you can see, different headings and paragraph are different elements and they both work the same class's name that was given to it. So the summary of what we discussed so far about our class is that the HTML class attribute specifies one or more class names for an element, and classes are used by CSS and JavaScript to select and access specific elements. And the class attribute can be used on any HTML element. The class name is case sensitive and different HTML elements can point to the same class name. So remember we finished discussing on class attributes. Now we're moving next to our HTML ID attribute. What is the difference? We are going to see the difference between a class and ID attribute because most I make use of it in our CSS, in our style sheet. So the HTML ID attribute is used to specify a unique ID for an HTML element. You cannot have more than one element with the same ID in an HTML document. Can you see the difference now? For ID attribute, you cannot have more than one element with the same ID in an HTML document. So using the ID attribute now, the ID attribute specifies a unique ID for an HTML element, and the value of the ID attribute must be unique within the HTML document. The ID attribute is used to point to a specific style declaration in a style sheet, and it is also used by JavaScript to access and manipulate the element with a specific ID. So the syntax for ID is you write a hash character, hash as you can see, followed by the ID name. Then you define the CSS properties within a curly braces element. Unlike the classes we discussed earlier, remember, its own syntax for classes is a period or dot, while for syntax for ID is hash. And the same way for this class, we define the CSS properties using curly braces in the same way for the ID. So in the following example below now, we are going to have an H1 element that points to the ID name my header. Then this H1 element will be styled according to my header, which is, as you can see, we use hash now. Style definition in the head section. So this is the example here. As you can see, we have the style hash my header because we've already used our ID in our content. Under our body, we have our H2 and our P. The ID attribute, we want to discuss about it. So it will not affect these two because we do not put an ID. So for this H1 now, there's an ID here. Then we give it an ID name, my header. Then we wrote a content there. So whatever we style under hash my header will affect this. So let's see. Let's copy the code now on our notepad Then I'll paste on my VS Code and let's see the difference of what we've discussed. So I'll go to my browser now, as you can see here. So it affects only this. I gave it an ID. I give my H1 an ID. The name of the ID is my header. Then I said, okay, affect only this is my header. And this content here, I can see it's not dot I use, it's hash because I'm using an ID. So I'm telling that I'll give me a background color of light blue. The text color should be black. If you have a padding of 40 px, the space 40 pixel, and the text align should be centered. So now take note that the ID name also is case sensitive. So if you use small letter all through for my header here, or small letter all through for my header here for your ID name, you cannot use capital letter here because it will not give you the result of what you want because it is case sensitive. And take note also that the ID name must contain at least one character and cannot start with a number. Take note of that. It must contain at least one character. It does not start with a number and must not contain white spaces, tabs, and so on. So we are going to see the difference between class and ID now. You want to know what is the difference? Remember, we talk about class, talk about ID. So what is the difference? When should we use class? When should we use ID? What difference? Now, a class name can be used by multiple HTML. Take notes. A class name can be used by multiple HTML elements. Why an ID name must only be used by one HTML element within the page. Remember previously we talked about how we use for classes different. If we have headings like 3, then we name it like Tokyo, Paris, another country. Then we name it to be the class to be, we gave it a name. Let's say I use tech. If I use tech all through and I went to my star as well and started to be called tech. So what the effect affects also the remaining class attributes. But in the case of ID, an ID name must not be used by one. An ID name must only be used by one HTML element. So we're going to say an example. Look at this example. Let's analyze this one after the other. Here we want to style the element with the ID in my header. But first, let's look at the body. This is the body. We have this content. Now, here an element with a unique ID. Put an ID here by writing in my header. Now, this content here, we want it to have effect of my header ID, and that is why we style it here. My header hash, my header. So all this style here will affect this content here, my city. Now, but if you want to put a multiple element in the same class, that is when you use class. But because it's just only one element, you want to select it in the code, just one element, you use your ID. But if you want to use for a multiple element, H2P, multiple elements, you can see here, multiple elements, you use class. So for this, we are going to use class for, we name it city, class for this, class for this. So when you style it dot city, it affects all these contents here because you class them, they are all multiple elements. But if you just want to pick out from your code a particular content that you want it to give you a different style, you use your ID. So it is used in just one particular element. But when you want to use it for your multiple HTML elements, you use your ID. So we're going to our notepad now. We'll copy the code and see the result of how it works. So this is the code, what we just discussed now. Ctrl C. So I'm going to go to my VS Code now and paste it. We are going to see how it's going to look on our browser. So let me scroll up now. So as you can see that only my city is having a background color of light blue because we set it as an ID, my header, my city. Okay, only these elements single-handedly should work with this. Have a background color of light blue, color black, text color black, padding 40 px and text align center. Why the remaining content, since they are multiple, should have .city. So when there are multiple elements, you make use of class. But when you are talking about just one, we use our ID element, as you can see below. ID. So if you have questions on what we just discussed, you can put that in the comment section. I'll be there to help. So now, how do we now use our HTML bookmark with ID and link? For those that are familiar with bookmark, remember HTML bookmark are used to allow readers to jump, like bookmark, when readers jump from one page to another. When you click a page, you move to another part. So HTML bookmark are used to allow readers to jump to specific parts of the web page. So bookmark can be useful if your page is very long and you want to quickly jump to another page. So to use a bookmark, you must first create it and then add a link to it. Then when the link is clicked, the page will scroll to the location with the bookmark. So example now, first you create a bookmark with the ID attribute. So we use our ID alone to create our bookmark. Take note of that. So we have an heading ID C4 chapter 4. So we want this chapter 4 now. We get an ID for it to be C4. Then add a link to the bookmark. So you have to add a link to your bookmark from within the same page. Now let's say example. Look at this. We have our body. Under this body, we have paragraph here. This is the link ahref. We've explained how to create a link in our previous videos. So if you have not watched that, then please do well too, so that you can understand this part very well. So you can create a link within your folder, then link the link there. Then you can jump to chapter 4. So after creating the link for each of the chapter, this is to this content, this is to headings, then paragraph, this is another heading, then paragraph. So these are the content. Now for this H2, we want our ID name to be C4 chapter 4. This chapter explains after writing your content. Now our heading should have heading 2, H2 here, H2 here. Should have an ID of C4, then chapter 4. Then paragraph here, this chapter explains this and 8 headings and so on. So these are the contents. So let's see how this ID works. Let's see how this will look on our browser. I'll be going to my notepad now. So I'm going to copy this and paste on my VS Code. So we'll explain how it works one after the other. So let's see. Control paste. Let me scroll up now. Now, assuming this is a link, to create a link, you make sure that you've already create a link inside this. Maybe let's say, okay, let me create another folder, link.html, enter. So let me go back. So let's say my chapter 4 page is inside this link.html. So let me put the folder there and click link.html. So I will have written all my content of chapter 4, all my chapter 4 in this page. So I've linked it. So when I click on the link, as you can see, it took me here. So you have linked each of your content. After linking each of the pages, so yeah, it's telling me that my link here will jump me to chapter 4, and my link here will jump me to chapter 10. Now these are the content. Now I'm using my ID here, H2 ID C4 chapter 4. Remember we said earlier here, the purpose of our ID, we can use our ID here. We said to use a bookmark, you must first create it and then add a link to it. Then when the link is clicked, the page will go to the location of the bookmark. And also, we said HTML bookmark are used to allow readers to jump to a specific part of the web page. So we use that, our ID, to achieve that. So let's say it looks on our content. As you can see, if I click or jump to chapter 4, it took me there. Although, because there was no content here in my link, so that is why it is blank, nothing there. So let me go back. So I can see too. When you click it, if as long as you put a link, it will take you there. So let's say these are chapters of the chapter, blah, 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 and it's very, very long. The chapters are very, very, very long, as you can see here. So the function of this ID is to take you to the chapter that you want, as you can see here. So here, H to chapter 3, as you can see, H chapter 3, chapter 4. Here's my chapter 4 here. My ID C4. So my C4 here is trying to tell you that, okay, take me to a link of where my chapter 4 is. So we can also use our ID as well to, maybe you want to style your chapter 4. So you can put that on this. You can style it. Maybe it's only chapter 4 to style. So you can style under our heading. After the HTML, remember we have our head. Under our head, you style it and you use your hash save. So whatever content you put in your style, it will reflect in the content of your chapter 4. Then if you want to jump to a page after another, you link your file to the page you've already created. So this is the remaining contents we've talked about. Or for you to achieve that, you can add a link to the move by jump to chapter 4 from another page, or use an href link, just like what I've explained earlier. So the summary of what we discussed today is that the ID attribute is used to specify a unique ID for an HTML element. The value of the ID attribute must be unique within the HTML document. The ID attribute is used by CSS and JavaScript to style, select a specific element. The value of ID attribute is case sensitive, and the ID attribute is also used to create HTML bookmark. So you can style your bookmark with it, each chapter of what you want. So if you still have questions, like you don't understand some parts we discussed today, please put that down on the comment section. I'll be there to assist you. And if you want one-on-one discussion or coach, we have the Telegram link down on our bio or as YouTube description. You have to click on it and as well go to Telegram group. And also we have our WhatsApp channel too, where you can get updates on our videos too, for more information too. So I would like you to put that in the comment section if you have questions, and as well ask questions in Telegram group by joining Telegram group anytime. So if you are just joining us, please subscribe and as well like our videos. So the assignments for this week is, I would like you to write some code using the classes and ID attributes we discussed today. So take notes. Our next video we're talking about introduction to CSS syntax and selector. So this is the end of our HTML introduction to HTML. And if you still want further explanation on HTML, I would like you to put that in the comment section or ask questions in the Telegram group. So we'll be starting our CSS introduction to CSS in our next video. I'm sure you'd like to know more on the CSS. The CSS we discussed is just little. We are starting that in our next class. In fact, I'm sure you are excited to know that. So there are lots for you to still learn in CSS, which we discuss in our next video. So see you in the next video, where we discuss our CSS syntax and selector. In fact, we can even discuss more. So stay tuned. On your notification down, so that when the next video is available, you can know. So thank you and bye.